Hello. Does it work? Yes, everything works. Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello. My name is Fiona, and this is Too Long Didn't Read Tabletop RPGs, in which I spend an hour or two looking for an RPG that has caught my eye, or it has been lounging at the back of the Google hard drive for way too long. And I've rolled randomly on a table that I have, and we just look at it, and we look at it to see what we like about it, what we think could be improved about it, and anything accessible about it. Yes, indeed, JC Darcy, you are perceived. Yeah, sorry about that, folks. I I've had a busy morning. Ooh, clang. No, I was just doing some voiceover stuff, and then I was like, oh, what time is it? Oh God, I've got to do this. Oh God, I've got something else afterwards. I mean, all great, wonderful stuff. And then nothing was working. The chat function wasn't working. My iTunes wasn't working for the music. Everything is fine. This is the energy I'm bringing today, but I hope you guys are all well. Thank you so much for joining us, whether it's live or later. Let's just get right into it then, shall we? We are looking at today a game whose name I'm going to keep pronouncing wrong every single time. Universalis, I think is how you pronounce it. It is the winner of the Indie RPG Most Innovative, I can't even say that word, Most Innovative Game Award. It won this award back in 2002. Which maths wise, over 20 years old, this game. And now we have the revised edition out. And I'll be honest, I had not heard of this game. A lot of these games, you see me on this. Hello, Sam. How are you doing, my friend? Nice to have you here. Some of these games, I go, I've never heard of it. And then I'll put it into like a Google search and people go, review this game, go, it's very good. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe I shall check it out. So that is the reason we're looking at this today. I believe it is like a world building / lots of stories. Everyone's a GM type game, so it's going to be very exciting. So we're just going to plow right into it. As always, I'll just say my disclaimers at the top. I've not read this RPG, so the quality of it may be variable. Again, it came out in 2002. Yes, who knows how language might be. I mean, was it on 2 days ago we had Viewscreen, which was actually turned out to be a very cracking RPG. Just the language it used dated itself enormously in terms of technology, so that's all good. Everyone's the GM is my favorite amount of GMs. Absolutely. No, I agree. As we said about the views. No, what did we say about? Oh no, I didn't say it at all on the stream. Sorry. I also did an interview yesterday with Craig from Lunar Designer Games for Where, which will come out in a couple of weeks' time. And it was exciting to talk to him about his games. And maybe I'll feature one or two of his games on Too Long Didn't Read because. Sorry, I've gone completely off track, but because those games, he basically has done like a space opera setting. And within the setting, he has different stories, but they're told by different game mechanics. And he was a big believer or a big proponent of the idea that if you've got a long-running campaign, you should be able to tell different stories in it using different game mechanics. So there was like the main sort of one that we talked about was Hopes and Dreams for Orbital Bound, which was sort of based on the Becky Chambers' Wayfinder series, which is a cracking series, I'll admit. And there was like one kind of system for that. But then there was like almost like a prelude about how did they get to this particular setting, and there was like a letter writing game between two people, and so it's all different kinds of things. And within the everyone's the GM, just comment there. That's the reason it sparked this memory is that in that particular game, the Hopes and Dreams one, every scene is rotating GM. So the next scene is the next person who's the GM can set up with the different characters and they can play different characters from a shared pool. So a bit like if you're thinking of like Cloud Atlas, so all the players are the same, but everyone can play different characters, which I just thought was really good. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. Sorry, it's just because I was like, oh yes, that was a really cool thing that I got to talk about yesterday, and it was really interesting. So look forward to that design when that comes out. Anyway, Universalis, we're gonna go to it now. Like I said, so I don't know how this game's gonna run or what's like. It might be very dated, who knows? But I'm interested because it sounds very different, so that's good. If you need to, obviously, open door policy, step away when you need to. What was the other thing? Not sponsored. I'll be honest, I couldn't find much about this RPG other than the Indie Press Revolution website where you can get the PDF from, which is where I got the PDF from. So again, not sure anything else about the designers themselves, who are Ralph Mazza and Mike Holmes. And then what's the final also not sponsored. Because again, couldn't find out much about this. But yeah, we'll see how we go from there. So I'm going to go away from big theatre screen to tiny theatre screen. And yes, let's face it, I'm going to put the facts out right here because we always start with looking at the text, the copy, like where you can get the stuff. I have to be honest, I don't use Indie Press Revolution that much. It is a great website. You can find lots of interesting RPGs there. that aren't, if they're not on itch or if they're not on drive-thru and stuff like that. But my god, what a terrible website. It feels like, oh, it's just not in the future at all. Like, I've moved it across so that you guys can see it, but it's just, look at all this white space. Look how tiny the text is. I'll have to zoom in on it. And I can't even, like, even the image of the book, you can't even look at it, so. No points for Indie Press Revolution there, I would say. But yes, I'm going to move it over a little bit because, yeah, look at that. Terrible. It's not optimized at all. Again, because again, why would they need to update it? You always need to update your website. There we go. Okay. Enhanced in. God. Oh, it's actually done it a little. There we go. It's actually zoomed in quite a bit there. Fantastic. So, Universalis is the winner of the Indie RPG Most Innovative Game Award in 2002, and now the revised version is now available for the first time, guys, as a PDF. Woo! You and your fellow players will create a complete story, introducing characters and taking turns guiding them through a world you create whilst developing the plot as you play. You'll use the game's unique resource system to compete for the privilege of telling the story the way you want it told, while simultaneously collaborating to create the best story possible. Suspense comes from never knowing what plot twists the other players will throw at you. Ooh, interesting. Again, we'll have to remember that this is obviously maybe a time before Session Zeros and, I don't know, Lines and Veils, but there we go. So to play, all we need is a blank piece of paper, pencils, dice, tokens, and plenty of imaginations, which is other things to note, we've got some quotes here. Oh, there is a website. Look at that teeny tiny website. Is it going to work? No. Ram's Head Publishing. No website. Can't be reached. That's a shame. I was like, oh, I didn't see that before. It doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, and we've got some quotes here. So, wow. The first thing that comes into my mind when I think of Universalis, that's the first thing that comes into my mind when I think of Universalis. What does? So thank you so much for creating Universalis. I'm having the time of my gaming life with it. I can honestly say I've never had more fun gaming than I did tonight. Roy Penrod. Oh, Sakaya! Hello, Sakaya! I'm so glad you're here, my friend. Happy Pride, absolutely, yeah. How are you doing, my friend? Production quality is high. Nice artwork, good dark print. I got a feeling that from now on, my train of thought will run something like this. Ooh, that's cool. I should design a game around it. Oh, wait, why would I do that when I could just use Universalis? Nathan Facts. This feels like these quotes have been made up. Are these just friends with the writers? I just wanted to tell you that I received Universalis yesterday. Mind-boggling. Money well spent in a hobby where that is not always the case. Lou Gonchi. And I got to play Universalis, which kicks major ass in capital letters there. If you don't have a copy of it, you better get one right the hell now, says John Wick. What, John Wick as in the fictional character John Wick? You can see why I was quite excited. Yeah, John Wick? Yeah, exactly. Anyway, again, let's hold all opinions and views about this thing until we've read it ourselves. So just to say at the top, this is $10 on Indie Press Revolution. I don't think you can get it anywhere else. So $10, that's what, roughly £7, £8-ish? Which I don't think, I mean, that's not bad for a PDF. I mean, a lot of PDFs are now going for £25. I did see there was another Kickstarter the other day that was going for £35. I think it's that new D20 by the Dungeon Coach one as well. So it's like, you know, I don't think it's too bad for a PDF of, you know, a game that's over 20 years old. But again, we'll see. I'd also say Indie Press Revolution, I do find their website, I mean, I know I've already just completely dragged them through the mud about how it looks, but it's just, like, I'm going to go to the main page, and I'm going to show you, will it load? This would be great if it doesn't load. Like, at least, I don't know, it's fine. It's just a bit sparse. It's a bit, what's the word? Utilitarian, I think, is what Alexandra said the other day about some games. So yeah, it just doesn't appeal to me at all. But this is a place where maybe you can only get certain RPGs. So I'd always keep it bookmarked just in case to have a look at what new products was going on. I can see, it says here, I can move out a bit. What's hot? Eat the Reich. Hooray, we're going to look at that soon. Making it a tabletop RPG for your particular kid. Well, I have to look at that very quickly when it loads up. Oh, yes, I have seen this image before. From RPG Kids. Yes, I've seen them on Twitter. So there you go. Oh, interesting. Anyway, that's not what we're looking at today. Sorry, I'm getting overexcited, getting ahead of myself. We're going into this game, so I'm going to move this back here. I'm gonna turn off Chrome here, and we're gonna go into it. So first things first. Yeah, you gotta love what's the word? It's been so long since I've used Word, so apologies for that. But that sort of like uh art. It's not clip art. What's the word? When it's the art font that you can use, definitely got that sort of shiny style to it. But Universalis, a game of unlimited stories by Ralph Mazza and Mike Holmes, the PDF edition. There you go. I mean, it's nice. I would say, obviously, now, not as eye-catching as we think it is. I will say, it does look a bit like a religious text to me. I don't know if anyone else is getting that vibe. If you find it you go to like a motel, it just happens to be in the drawer next to the next to the Bible or something. Sort of looks like a religious pamphlet. Yeah, jinx. We got it. I'm glad I'm not the only one. Very good. So Universalist is the game where every player is the game master. The game where the players can create and populate the world, a bit of a gap there, of the world, as they desire, as they play. The game where everything happens because a player wanted it to happen. The game where suspense comes from the actions, another gap, of the players and not a random roll. The game whose plot evolves as you play with no random tables, railroading, or scenario books. Oh, but I do like random tables. There's nothing wrong with random tables. The game which requires absolutely no setup or preparation time. Okay, all right. The game where it doesn't matter if all the players show up on time or at all. Oh, that's a bit that's a big claim. Okay, I kind of would like them to show up. Oh, wait, I guess if all the players don't show up on time or at all. Begin play with only sheets of blank paper, pencils, 10-sided dice, tokens, and plenty of imagination. All the rules you need can be found within these pages. Okay, well, great. All right, we'll go straight into it. I will say I like the little universal, like sort of astral sort of image we've got here as the sort of header. I mean, it'll do. I do like. Where's these good images we're gonna see? I think it's all that. Great images. Dark text was what's the credit said. All right, so we've got acknowledgements of credits, the forward, and we've got 6 chapters in total. We've got the basic concept, establishing the tenets, scene framing and game flow, narrating the scene, creating components, complications, and then conclusion and glossary and impact. Fine. So in total, it's 134 pages. We'll see how much we get through. Like I said, we're gonna keep the time to this because we've only got 2 hours to have a look through this, and we'll go from there, and we'll see what we see. So, wow. So, copyright 4 times over. Oh, there's some webs. We could email these people. Excellent. That's exciting. Rabbithole at cox.net. Matt at chimera.info. The cover image. I want to see if this website works. It still works. That website to the artist. That's quite exciting. But it is all very I would say the very technical, not technical. Just plain text. That's the thing there. And we've got some things there. So, all right, fair enough. All right, I am going to zoom in a tiny bit because even my eyes are like killing me on this. So the forward to the PDF edition. It was in late 2000 when Mike Holmes and I began work on the game that would become Universalis. Originally just a working title, the game became so much more it began in so much more traditional fashion, hacking some old house rules of mine with some new ideas we had for giving players the ability to help the GM define the world as they played. Mike's ideas were much more progressive than this, and gradually I came to see that separate rules for the character creation and creation of the world were unnecessary, and began using the same rules that allowed players to define the world as to define their characters as well. Soon thereafter, it became clear that these same rules could be used to define and control the opposition, the antagonists, the villains, and the challenges of that world as well. With those things in the hands of the players, what need remained for a game master? From there, it was mechanically a simple step, but conceptually an enormous one to do away with the designated player characters altogether. After all, if the players could step in to control the characters that traditionally would be run by a GM, then the line between PC and NPC was already blurred to the point of meaninglessness. With that, the last remaining trappings of my original house rules vanished, and Universalis became truly its own game, unique at the time. And by then, I'd become enamored enough with the working title to keep it for the finished game. I don't think you should ever do that. Oh, hello, Cat, Lord Mistress. How are you doing, my friend? Welcome to Universalis. I know. Interesting working title that came on the book. I'm always a big fan of, like, don't change the title. No matter what it is, change the title. There we go. Okay, so the game debuted at Gen Con 2021, 2001. And our small initial print run sold out by the following January. The second one lasted until 2006 when I took the opportunity to revise the game. The changes were not enormous in the rules, but more significant in the presentation. As several years of teaching the game to new players at conventions gave me a better insight of how to organize and structure the text. The concept of rules gimmicks, formalized steps for creating house rules had been in the game from the debut. In the revised edition, I took the opportunity to include in the text several gimmicks that had been used successfully by fans of the game. Now, in 2011, the revised edition is being reintroduced for the first time in PDF form. So this is, yes, okay, so this version, so the game's been around for about over 20 years, but in this version, it's been roughly 13 years, this particular version. I have not heard of this one. No, me neither. If you, again, you might not need to see the beginning of the VOD where we had some very interesting quotes about how kick-ass it was. Ooh, a nice pen drawing there. Gotta love a good hat with a feather in it. Finally. Oh, did we miss something? No, I guess that's the end of the forward. I finally dedicate this to Ruth, without whom this would be a whole lot more emptier. Good old Ruth. Probably wrote most of it. No, I'm kidding. So, the basic concept, getting started. Universalis is a game about creating stories. Every story needs a setting, characters, prompts, and a plot. You'll be developing these as you play by spending coins. Coins are the resource that give you control over the story, and every player will have a supply of them called their wealth. Okay. Every character you create and everything you have those characters do will cost coins. Coins are a way of regulating how much of the story any one person can tell at a time. Basically, every statement you make that establishes some fact about the story will cost a coin. When you run low on coins, you're actually running low on the ability to influence the story, or at least until you acquire more coins. Everyone will get a few additional coins periodically during the game, but the best way to replenish a low supply is to introduce plot conflicts, obstacles, and complications, often during another player's turn. When you first sit down to play, you and your fellow players will decide on what kind of story you're going to be telling. Is it going to be an action-adventure, a romance, a mystery, or a psychological thriller? Is the mood going to be dark and gritty, a light comedy, or outrageously absurd humour? We call it a farce. What's the setting? Is it going to be a science fiction featuring spaceships? Will it be set on an alien planet, or will it be a future version of Earth? Is it going to be fantasy based in actual history, or a western? How strictly are you expecting the other players to abide by the conventions of the genre you're playing in? Think of your favourite books, movies, and TV shows for inspiration. To answer these questions, you're going to be taking turns around the table with each player spending 1 coin to add one element of the type of game you're going to tell. These are called the tenets of the game. For your first game, tenets should be kept fairly basic and will often be based on cliché or familiar genre tropes. You'll keep going until everyone gets a sense about what kind of story you'll be telling. It is important not to get so involved in adding tenets that you actually begin to tell the story itself. When someone gets a great idea for a strong opening scene, you'll stop adding tenets and then begin actual play. So this actually reminds me of basically improv. Like when we do long form improv, we often start with like an opening bit, which is called, we call it sort of, or I call it like idea generation. So you get like a suggestion, like can we get a suggestion of a location or a famous line of dialogue or a song lyric, all that sort of thing. And you get it, and then maybe depending on what kind of format you're doing, long form format, you will like analyze that sort of suggestion between the players themselves. So sometimes you'll have a discussion like, oh, I've never heard of that line, what do you think it means? And then going back and forth, and people might add history to it or add their own experiences of what that suggestion means to them. That's usually called like a living room format. Genre cauldron, genre cauldron, genre cauldron. Absolutely, JC Darcy. I love genre cauldron, as you could tell. Genre cauldron. or my version of it is through the keyhole, through the keyhole, through the keyhole. When we look into a room and then we describe what's in the room. Anyway, about 10 other people watching this are going like, what the fuck? Where was I? Sorry, it completely distracted me with genre cauldron. And then idea generation. So you can either discuss it like a living room format, or you could do something like this where you add facts about something. So one of my favorite improv formats is the documentary or mockumentary or whatever you want to call it. And the original opener was that like we'd get a name for a fictional village or for a fictional documentary like Little Biggerville or something like that. And then each of the players would then step forward or come on screen, depending on if you're online, and you would say a fact about the town, as if you're reading from like the Wikipedia entry. So, Little Bigville, their sort of flag or sort of town crest is a weasel in a jaunty hat, something like that. And it could be like their biggest import is sunflower seeds because of the big parade that they have every year, and they've won the best in bloom 3 years in a row. You know, stuff like that, like things that are slightly made up. And you can be about people there. So like the mayor went missing last year. No one's seen them since, all that sort of thing. But you don't describe the people in too much detail because you don't want to, you don't want to play them, etc. But I really love adding tenants and stuff and then creating a town like that. So I kind of like this idea, like we build a world together by saying like, ooh, in this world, the owls are the biggest predators around, something like that, So, at this point, you'll be, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more because, oh god, a black text on white really does mean I'm constantly in dark mode. High contrast is really what we need more of in RPG readings, don't we? So at this point, you'll begin creating the plot of your story. The whole game is played in scenes, just like the scenes of a movie or a TV show. All scenes in the game start by being framed, which just means establishing what exactly is going on, so who, what, and where. No why yet, okay. Or how. So the players can visualize what's happening. The player who frames a scene will have a great deal of influence over the direction the story takes. So at the beginning of each scene, everyone will have a chance to secretly bid coins for the privilege. Ooh, I love secretly bidding coins. That's fun. If you have a really great idea for what to do in the next scene, bid a lot of coins. If you don't, bid a few or none. Bids can be revealed will be revealed simultaneously, and whoever wins will frame the next scene and spend their bid coins. Other bidders will get to take their coins back. Oh, I do love that, like an auction. That's quite fun. The winner's job as the scene framer is to then set the stage for the rest of the players. They need to describe where the action is taking place, when it's taking place, and who is there. Once that's done, the player will continue around the table with each player having the opportunity to add to the story. As players talk, one player, called the recorder, is designated to write down in bullet points fashion important things that are said. Ooh, I don't want to be the recorder. That sounds tiresome. Maybe we just use our brain boxes to remember stuff. Everything you narrate about the story will be either colour or fact. Colour includes all the extraneous details that make the descriptions interesting and exciting, but aren't really all that crucial to remember. Facts are the important elements of the story. If you think something that you said is worth writing down so others will remember it, if you want it to be an important element to the story that the other players will abide by and incorporate in the narrative, it's a fact and needs to be paid for. If not, it's just an entertaining tidbit that won't likely need to be referred to again, and it's colour and it's just free. Every fact costs 1 coin, and once you spend a coin on something, it becomes a fact. If you don't spend a coin on it, it is only colour. Ooh, okay. Facts are important when there is a disagreement amongst the players about a statement someone makes. Any element someone narrates about anything related to the story is subject to being challenged by one of the other players who doesn't like it or thinks they have a better idea. But once something is established as a fact, it's more difficult to challenge later. When a disagreement arises, you discuss what you don't like and offer suggestions. Nice, a bit of skill there. You can come to an agreement. If you can come to an agreement in play, you can come to an agreement. Great, play goes on. If you can't agree, then a full challenge occurs where everyone bids coins to vote for the outcome they prefer. Okay. Alright, I guess, I like the secret bidding system. And I guess like if you really can't come to a decision as a feel like, oh, I can't decide, then yes. But I do feel like it does sound like people are arguing and all right, vote for me and vote for my ending, which I don't think that's I don't know, that's not what the kind of games I play. But I do like the bidding system. Some facts will establish components in the game. Components are people, places, and things. They are nouns of the game. Some facts will establish traits that are attached to components. Traits describe the features of and relationships between components. They are the adjectives of the game. Some facts will establish events which involve components doing things. They are the verbs and adverbs of the game. Some facts will establish new tenants in the game. These are the rules for the game world itself. Any noun, adjective, verb, or adverb left as colour and not paid for, however, does not establish any of these things. They're completely temporary and not written down. Every component that is currently present in a scene will belong temporarily to an individual player, and the player will play that component. This includes not only the characters in the story, but also buildings, possessions, entire organizations, or even abstract concepts like an ideology. The player is said to control that component. Control will change hands frequently during play so that any player may wind up playing any component, and no component is the sole exclusive property of any one player. That's interesting. That feels very much like a J Dragon type thing. When you have, when you think of Wanderhome or Sleepaway or even your Zabers, that you can pass around different characters or different locations or concepts or themes to other people to then spend the points on if they've got points attached to them or make their moves on. During play, players can only establish facts relating to components they control. Okay, yes, that makes sense. If you try to establish a fact about a component you don't control, you must either first take control of that component or originate a complication. During complications, players will use established traits or spend coins to establish new ones to add 10-sided dice to a dice pool. Oh. Facts. Oh, so here's a little example. So again, I think, all right, my first sort of critique, I guess. I mean, could anyone really read that? Like, I understand, like, we should put things in bold, like, and maybe, like, again, that's what I was going to say, like, I need something like this to, like, summarize things in boxes so I can go, here you go, here's the important things. Like, I get what it's saying. It's very easy to read aloud, to be fair. But, good God, I can't even look at it. Oh. Anyway, where was I? Any trait or fact can be interpreted as an advantage for the component the player controls. The component the player controls will earn dice. Wait, what? Try again. So it says any trait or other fact can be interpreted as an advantage for the component the player controls will earn dice. And each player will build their own pool of dice. Okay, that's a very long sentence. That's a huge block of text. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, the Lord Mistress. I'm like, what? I need block capitals. I need boxes. These dice will roll to generate bonus coins and determine which order the players will get to use those coins to describe the outcome of the complication. Oh, okay, so that's how you generate some coins. Manufacturing situations that will put components controlled by different players into conflict is a key driving force of play and an important means of acquiring additional coins. Ugh. Play continues until the players agree that the story has come to an end, possibly taking multiple play sessions. Early play can appear rather chaotic, as the players introduce a lot of characters and ideas and create many divergent plot lines. Eventually, in a flash of inspiration, one or more players will see a way to tie all the threads together in a coherent whole and begin to maneuver the game towards a climax. Often, multiple players will have multiple visions of what the climax should be or how it should end up. This will be when the complications will get very large and involve lots of dice as you compete for the privilege of driving towards your preferred solution. A finished game may be left as a complete project on its own, or you may revisit the same setting with new tales to tell. Future games may gradually build up on an entire world or cycle of stories, which will reuse existing components from previous games. That's the core of how Universalis is played. The rest of these rules will elaborate on the concepts outlined above, cover a variety of contingencies that may come up during game. I can't think what those could be. I go all in. There will be a cat called Mittens. Provides more specific examples and introduce a few advanced ideas. I like the basic. I will be honest. I like the basic. I like the idea of secretly bidding for stuff. That feels very board. I mean, if anyone's here played the Game of Thrones board game, the secret bidding stuff on the tracks, I do quite like that. I'm bloody terrible at it. I quite like the bluffing aspect of that. But I do feel any disagreements and stuff. Like I think I don't know. I play with people who are willing to listen to me out and hear me out, and they're are willing to play and stuff like that. So if you really can't agree on something, and then you're having to like vote for me with your coins. I don't know. I don't know about that personally. I don't know how often that would come up necessarily for me, but interesting concept. Okay, so setting up the game. So it requires no pre-game preparation. Fantastic. We're all fans of that. So what we need is a supply of tokens to serve as coin. As always, if you've got your glass stones or beads, your poker chips, or actual pocket change can all serve. What? 50 coins times the number of players is a good amount for most players. 50 coins? So if you've got what? 4 players? That's 200 bits and pieces. What are you talking about? Seems like a competitive world building rather than a collaborative. I give it the side eye. That's fair. That's fair. I think it's quite different, but I just feel like I like the idea of having lots of coins, but then be like, oh, but so and so's not got any coins, and then giving one of my coins. I totally break the rules there. As I've not come across anything like this so far. Like paper and pencils. Any paper will suffice, guys. Ruled, unruled, a notepad. Even sticky notes were doing the pitch. I actually am a big fan of sticky notes. You know what? I've only got these little like notebook ones. I miss the big ones where I can just stick them down and stuff. A large supply of 10-sided dice or d10s. 10 per player is a good starting point. They're not available. We've got some optional rules for using standard d6s instead. Okay, there's alternate rules. That's good in terms of accessibility. Space to serve as the bank. Uh-oh. Oh, is this Monopoly the role-playing game? Oh no! Where the central reserve of coins will be kept. Not required, but it's often helpful, is to set bowls or other containers to hold coins and dice, especially with not playing around the table. I will say, okay, completely off track, but Quinn's Quest, just because I've got the email today from a new blog they did. Quinn's Quest, they have some really great videos on their Patreon, and one of it is like rolling dice and how to roll dice better, which I know sounds like a very clickbaity title, but one of the things Quinn's talked about was like having like a bowl to roll dice in, or having like a cup to roll them in and then hide it and then look underneath to see if you've made the save or not, and not show anyone else. I like that. I kind of like that physical aspect of it. It means that we also means we get to buy some more dice trays at some point, right? Or dice cups. After that, sufficient space for each player to roll large handfuls of dice. A designer, get some designer commentary here. So the coin mechanic sets up a miniature economy in the game which functions regardless of the number of coins involved. However, different amounts of coins will result in a different field to play. A coin-rich versus a coin-poor environment. It is capitalist, the game, isn't it? Players are encouraged to experiment until they find a level they most enjoy. In general, a game with high initial coins will allow the players to spend many coins building the environment in the first scene before getting into the action. A game with fewer initial coins will require getting to the action earlier because only by the starting scenes and originating complications can more coins be acquired. Each player will have a supply of coins on their own called their wealth taken from the bank. It is suggested that you start with 25 coins each until you become familiar with the rules. After a few sessions, you can adjust the amount to find a level that suits your play. A number of coins can be used must be chosen before selecting a tenancy. Yeah, that makes sense. Coins measure story power. If you spend coins, you gain power over the story. It's that simple. A player's wealth is a reserve of potential, but as yet unused story and it's yet unused story power. There we go. As coins are spent to gain immediate control over an aspect of the game, the player is simultaneously giving up some potential for control in the future. This dynamic and the need to replace coins is what drives the game forward. The one thing I'd say, just quickly off here, like, again, the more, like, I don't mind the secretly bidding stuff. I think that's different. But the problem is that, yes, you could have a lot of influence of it. But I find, like, when I play games, if I've got a good idea for something, I keep it short and sweet. And if it's not, if people don't like it, that's fine. But, like, I think, hopefully, any ideas I give forward with a coin, I don't then have to pay lots of coins to then shove it down people's throats. Like, they might want to go, oh, that is a really cool idea, and take it on and build up on it. So I wonder, like, here it just feels like, yeah, if the person with the most coins has the most power, but it doesn't mean they're the best storyteller or come up with the best ideas. It just means their ideas get across, which could be, again, that's going to be problematic. Say, rules gimmick, recorder, recorder variants. Instead of nominating a single recorder, you have the person to the right of the speaking player be the recorder. So the responsibility passes around the table. Or each player can record their own, keep a record of their own of what they say on their turn. Instead of using regular paper, each individual component can be recorded on a separate index card listing its own traits. Yeah, I think I would suggest that so far. These index cards can be then pulled out and placed in the center of the table as they are introduced in the game. I'm not sure if this game feels like a good vibe for me personally. Yeah, no, that is like I said, this is over 20 years old. This game. I think it's very different, like the bidding stuff. But yeah, I agree. I feel like I don't think we'd get into the competitive nature nowadays. I wonder if earlier on, maybe, I don't know, it's that sort of thing. It'd be interesting if we go through some of the play examples, perhaps, what kinds of stories are created, I guess. That's the only thing. I did like this recorder variant that is the person next to you, like you have a shared piece of paper or document, and you go, okay, Fiona is the recorder now, but then it'll pass to her, and then it'll pass on to her when she becomes the GM of the scene, or the person that's got the scene, and the person next to her will do it. I quite like that. Rather than having one person do it or everyone doing it. I think having it, then people can really add their own flavour to it. And yeah, I think that's quite a nice one. Establish one player as the group's recorder, typically the player who knows the rules best. This player doesn't have any additional authority over the story and plays by the same rules as the rest of the players. Their job will be to write down all the facts that are paid for. Oh, I don't know. Can you guys? I don't know if you guys can hear it. The train's going past. Prepare for 20 minutes of just massive train carriage goes past. I just heard the horn in the distance. Where was I? Their job will be to write down all the facts that are paid for. This record can then be read or passed around by the players if they need to refer back to what has been created. It may be convenient to have another player keep the record when it's the recorder's player's turn. Each component should be given its own section on a blank piece of paper with room to add additional traits during play. Each scene should be given its own section listing with components that are present and describing the key events in abbreviated bullet point fashion. Yeah, I mean, maybe if we were doing this book again, maybe we'd have like some images of what that could look like as a, like some illustrations as an example, just in case. Chapter 2, Establishing the Tenants. Oh, there's the train going past now. Now, you can't hear it, thankfully, but I can hear it. The first step of any new game of Universalis is to establish what kind of story... Oh, hang on, I just want to check one thing. I saw an email. No. Fun fact, guys, my stuff is either arriving today or tomorrow, and they give me an hour's notice. I don't think it's going to be today, but every time I'm like... and when I say my stuff, I mean my entire livelihood that's been shipped over. So that's very exciting. So I can actually get my physical RPGs out soon. Where was I? What kind of story you and your fellow players would decide to tell? Universalis has no established setting and is not designed with any specific genre in mind. It is a toolbox that you can use to craft a story of your own liking through play. But before you begin to use any tool, you have to know what sort of project you're using it for. All players will participate in defining a series of tenets that establish the parameters for the upcoming game. Tenets. So these are facts that define the game. What kind of world will be set in? What type of story is about to be told? How the players prefer to play, and what the special rules may be used. This reminds me a little bit of You Awaken in a Strange Place, where each person can give tenets of stuff about describing the world, but also they can really set the genre. Like in You Awaken in a Strange Place, you have one person that has the genre, one person that has an adjective, and one person that has a location. But they don't confer beforehand, you just sort of say it in that order. So it could be like a western, but then the adjective could be posh. So posh western, and location could be a cornfield in Iowa. So you're like, all right, how do we put all that into a setting? And I quite like that as a random thing, and you don't have to pay for that per se. So at the beginning of the game, the starting player is determined by any means desired. So age, seat position, seniority, volunteer, etc. Presumably the person who knows the game the best should go first, right? That player must either pay 1 gold coin to propose a game tenant or pass. I think they have to, right? That seems so stupid. Like, I'm starting the game, but I'm not going to give a tenant, so I'm going to pass. I think everyone should get a free tenant to start with, right? The play proceeds clockwise around the table with each player paying 1 coin to propose a tenant or passing. Tenants are then written down in a list by the recorder. Once all the players are satisfied with the tenants that have been drafted, i.e. all the players have passed, actual play begins. I see, so you can add as many tenants as you want, but then if you go, pass, 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 it's like in poker, right? Or any card game. This should only occur after enough tenants have been accepted to give all players a pretty solid idea about what type of game is about to be played, and how they, as a group, have consented to play it. I mean, no session zeros here, or lines of veils, but that's okay. Okay, can you do anything to, negate a tenant? I'm sure it's about to tell us now. But, be like, hey, I don't like that tenant you've just introduced and paid for. Rewind that, Can you try that again? Sometimes it is enjoyable to plunge into a game with only a minimum paired tenants. This usually leads to a very chaotic and often silly, but sometimes extremely liberating and enjoyable experience. For more serious and deeper games, players are encouraged to spend as much time as necessary establishing tenants thoroughly. I mean, it'd probably be good to give a rough idea of how many tenants. Like, for your starting game, and you've got a group of, 4 people, 12 tenants, so 4 each. The first one being 3. A good sign you have enough tenants to begin play is when players start to try to develop plot elements via the tenants. Oh, yes. This is the same thing with the documentary I was talking about. When people start to go, the mayor's been missing, and a search party has been going out for them, and they've been going out, it's like, no, that's an event. We need to have that in the story. A good sign that you have enough tenants. Establishing background with tenants is often useful, but if an actual narrative starts to evolve, the game is clearly ready to... Oh, a design note, okay. Begin actual play, right. Universalis requires that all players are creatively engaged and committed to the story being told. The tenants phase ensures that all players contribute to establishing the structure for that story. Players who actively participate in establishing tenants are not only demonstrating a commitment to putting forth the effort to play, but are also more likely to be inspired during play because they help create the framework of the game. Get that? Any players who are not actively participating in creating tenants may not completely understand the level of creative engagement and initiative successful Universalist play requires. Okay. Oh, I see. Yes. Sorry. Weird sentence. Fiona, your top matches your stream border stuff. Green, gold, black. Oh, hello. I was gonna say something else. Dan, how are you doing, my friend? Yes, this is one of my new cardigans. It's Call of Cthulhu. I love it. Yes, and it does match. I did not realize that. I was just wearing it because I quite like it. It's quite soft as well. How are you doing, my friend? How are you doing? We're looking at a game which, again, I don't think you'll enjoy either. You pay money in this RPG to get your ideas across. It's kind of like capitalist, the RPG, so probably not the game for you either. Where was I? So the more experienced players should help guide them through the process, but it is more important that the players' contributions are their own, not merely parroting suggestions from other players. New players must feel comfortable contributing to the game and free to act on their own imagination, as long as they've got the coin for it, clearly. It is not uncommon for a group's first game of Universalis to wind up with a story that's pretty silly, or even an absurd mix of conflicting genres, the everything but the kitchen sink game. Universalis asks players to put their creativity to the test in real time to be judged by their peers, and often the safest way to do that is to use humour. Such a game is great for teaching the rules and building a comfort level amongst the players. To keep future games more focused, try and spend some more time establishing solid tenants. Yeah, I get getting people on the same page as well. Well, I'll watch anyways. Oh, well, that's very kind of you, Dan, but you get cross. That's your own fault. No, I basically, I like the idea of secret bidding to get control of the story. I think that's quite fun. And also quite a risk as well. A good sign is that you don't have enough tenants to begin play. You can't imagine an interesting character and what the character should be doing in the story. This is the same with improv, by the way. I'm always trying to push people to come up with more tenants for stuff, but then, so going back to that documentary I did, putting out different statements of stuff. if people like keep building on the same tenants, you get to a point where you're getting a very deep but very obvious story happening. I'm always like, now think of a tenant that's not connected to the mayor going missing, and they'd be like, there's a cheese festival. Great, what's happening at the cheese festival? And build that up a little bit. So yeah, I'm always like propose tenants that are maybe like 10 poles away from the original idea you had. We're going to actually say here, isn't it? Continue to propose tenants until you can imagine such a character and what they want to do. Then you're ready to frame the first scene and create that character and have them do it. There are 3 types of tenants that can be proposed: story elements, social contract issues, and rules gimmicks. You may propose one and only one of these tenants on each of your turns, and doing so costs 1 coin. I do think that the first one will be you have to make it 3. Sakaya says, Fiona is in tune with people's thoughts today. I try my best. It's a very rare occasion when I am. The rule applies for the entire game, so at any time during actual play, a player can also spend 1 coin to propose a new tenant, and no more than 1 on his turn. His turn. There we go. That tells you all you need to know about this game. This process is called proposing a tenant because the player's choice is not carved into stone. Anything you say or do in the game is subject to being challenged by another player who disagrees with you or thinks that he has a better idea. The challenge mechanic is explained in Chapter 3, which starts later on. Unless there is a challenge, however, your proposal is presumed accepted and becomes part of the structure of the game. In game terms, each accepted tenant is considered to be a fact attached to the game itself. It is possible to change a previously accepted tenant, but with the original text serving as a fact, it becomes easier to challenge the proposed change and prevent it from being accepted. What's this rules gimmick? Okay, multiple tenants. So, over the course of many games, one of the most frequently forgotten rules is the rules that limits a player to proposing only 1 tenant on their turn. This rule was designed to make sure that all players have an equal opportunity to set tenants for the game by limiting each player to just 1 single idea at a time. And also if they've got the money for it. As it turns out, some ideas require more than 1 tenant to express properly, especially story elements involving adding traits to components. And so it has become commonplace in most groups to allow players to introduce multiple tenants on their turns so long as they're related to the basic idea. That's interesting. Now, I think I would be quite strict about stuff and be like, you need to narrow it down to like 1 single idea and then build upon it. It's mansplain the RPG. Oh no! Sorry, guys. It kind of feels like it, doesn't it? Oh, let's keep going. We'll see. We're only 50 minutes into this, so maybe there'll be something interesting. Story elements are used to specify aspects about the upcoming story, such as genre, theme, premise, settings, situations, moods, including atmosphere and tone, and degree of realism. When you propose a story element, you're providing direction to the other players as to the sort of story you're interested in. Each story element is both a limiting factor, shrinking the range of narration that would be considered appropriate for the game, and also a creative springboard for the other players to riff new ideas. The story elements will provide the structure for the upcoming game, so it is important that all players are jazzed by the ideas presented. Ah yes, jazzed. Enthusiastic consent. Players should be prepared to make full use of the challenge mechanic described in the next chapter to block tenants that are deal breakers. That is, any tenants that would prevent you from enjoying the game. Story elements may include defining specific characters or setting locations using the rules in Chapter 5 for components. Players should not begin to have these components interact, but a powerful character or mood setting location can be a great source of inspiration for later play. I guess we're going to have a play example, so let's introduce 5 players who are going to be part of our ongoing play examples. We've got Albert, Bob, Christina, Dave, and Ed. Again, not to assume anything about these things, but it's nice to have a token woman there, isn't it? That's nice. We're not gonna read these things per se. We'll have a quick look through. So let's play a science fiction game tonight. So Albert proposes a genre with 1 coin. Bob says, okay, but no spaceships. I'm sick of spaceships. Proposes a limit to the setting for a coin. Oh, so you... Okay. Christina says, I was actually looking forward to something more fantasy tonight. How about we do sci-fi but with a real fantasy flair? Christina is informally polling the other players to how likely they are to challenge her upcoming proposal. Like what? Albert's not sure if he likes where this is going. Christina says, well, like that famous quote, any technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic. So we do all the trappings of sci-fi, but don't worry at all about the actual science-making stuff. Technology can be more fantastical, more magical, like the people who use it don't really understand how it works. This exchange is technically referred to as negotiation in the challenge mechanic. So Bob's, oh no. Bob says, so, just like Star Trek then, everybody laughs. I bet everyone will laugh. Everyone laughs now. Bob's really funny, guys. He's also made a fool of himself. He's also undermined Christina quite a bit. Christina goes, well, and Ed goes, yeah, we get it. Let's go with that and see what happens. Everyone nods in assent. So Christina pays 1 coin. Negotiation was successful, so there's no need for a full challenge. This is what a terrible play example. Poor Christina, the token woman. It's trying to select something on Netflix. I mean, yeah, it is fair. Oh, let's keep going. You know what? Fuck it, let's keep going. Dave says, my turn. Let's see. How about we include a lot of animals mixed in with the technology, like in Star Wars, where they still ride dewbacks and tauntauns and such. Nobody challenges Dave, so Dave pays 1 coin. This is the most uncomfortable play example. I know, I'm laughing, but inside I'm kind of crying. Ed says, okay, interesting, but here's a twist. The people are all really small, like just a couple of inches, so the animals they use are just regular sized animals like mice and lizards. Bob. Fuck this guy. I don't want him to play it like, what, like small, like Smurfs? Ed's like, well, yeah, but only really high tech. And not blue with little silly hats, of course. Stop talking, woman, especially as it is. Everyone hates Bob. Oh, I'm losing it. Okay, Christina goes, okay, but not lizards. I hate reptiles. It's not Christina's turn! So she isn't establishing this as one of the tenets of the world game. At this point, she's signaling to the other players that she's likely to challenge things involving lizards. She could propose the no lizards rule as a tenet for 1 coin on her turn. Ed says, fine, lizards can be the enemy then, or something. Ed pays 1 coin for the little people. He can only propose 1 tenet per turn, so he cannot add the lizards as an enemy on this turn, although he will likely do it in a later turn. And so it continues until the groundwork for the game is almost completely laid. Oh, sorry, I'm so... Are all play examples like this? I kind of feel like I've missed out on actually reading out the play examples before. I'm actually fucking crying. That's so awful. No, sounds to me like Christina's X-carding reptiles, but it's not her turn. Bob's business is currently going into receivership. I think Bob's partner has left him with the kids as well. Suddenly this is the worst. Yes. Oh, I'm so sorry, chaps. Again, not that I warn people, but it does feel like this was written 20 years ago, but sorry, I did not think it was gonna be that. Sorry. Right. They decided to keep reptiles. Just make them the bad guys. If selecting the game is this complicated, what are the actual rules like? Okay. Oh, hang on, I'm gonna... Everybody laughs, Bob. Everybody laughs. It's like its own little drama. Okay. God, okay. The social contract is an agreement between the players as how they want to play the game. Every play group has its own style of play, and every player has their own desires for how they enjoy experiencing their games and what they hope to get out of them. By discussing these in advance and reaching some consensus about what is and isn't acceptable before play starts, the group can avoid many conflicts that lead to group dysfunction. By treating the explicit game tenets that are proposed and accepted, the players are formally agreeing to certain boundaries in their play. Sure. Such tenets may include questions of pacing, outside distractions, table talk, and how closely players are expected to adhere to the tropes of a particular genre. JC Dawson. Oh, this section should be good. Oh man, I wish I had more than 2 hours to look at this game. This is how not to write a game, right? How to isolate everyone from a game. The social contract can be one of the most important aspects of the game. It is not always necessary to define each aspect of the social contract as a formal tenant, although this may be especially desirable if playing with a new group. Many established groups have played with each other so long that the majority of social contract issues are automatically assumed, even if they aren't explicitly stated. No, never assume. Because you played with someone for over 5 years means that they're okay with your content. Oh, they were doing fine until that example. No. Oh, we're never gonna get through this book, are we? Oh lord. Other times, so for a quick pickup games that aren't meant to be serious, potential areas of friction can be largely ignored and the basic rules of etiquette relied upon. However, even for the most established groups, spending some time talking about the game and how players expect each other to play can be a valuable exercise. Valuable, necessary, mandatory! I hate this. Oh, God. You didn't think you'd be spending your Thursdays doing this now. It sounds like Christina, Ed, and Bob need a session 0, and perhaps some form of friendship therapy too. Okay. Oh god. The group dynamics issues found in the social contract are hardly unique to Universalis. They are a fundamental part of any social activity. Okay, yes. This dynamic includes all of the intersocial relationships, issues, life experiences, and personal baggage brought to the table by each of the players. These issues then can combine and counter each other during play in what can be a very volatile mix, in the same manner as they do during social activities between human beings. Yeah, okay, yes. Yes. What are we gonna... Uh-oh. You can see it there. It says returning to our example. Oh. Because each and every one of us has dealt with social issues for our entire lives, we are all intimately familiar with the kinds of things that might adversely affect a social relationship or how it might offer wondrous new opportunities for social synergy. However, it can be useful to discuss these issues at the beginning of play to establish where others' sensitivities lie, lines that should not be crossed, and ground rules that will help enhance everyone's enjoyment. Okay. Returning to our example. Christina. You know how in that other game we were playing with Steve as the GM and he used to raise his hand to signal everyone else to be quiet and start kibitzing? I think that worked pretty well. The person whose turn it is should raise their hand to get everyone's attention, and everyone else should stop gabbing when they do. 1 coin for a tenant addressing table talk. Dave says, and no cell phones. Bob. Bob. Last week was totally ridiculous. You got 1,000 calls. Really distracting. It's because he's going through a divorce. That's what's happening. I say turn all phones and tablets and stuff off. Did they have tablets in 2002? We can check our messages at the break. 1 coin for a tenant addressing the outside distractions. Ed says, and no Monty Python jokes at all by anyone. 1 coin for a tenant that should be in every game ever played. I mean, fair, but also, I mean, no need to justify it, I guess, but I love that for Christine. Bob. Okay. Oh dear. Rules gimmicks. Rules gimmick is the term Universalis uses for optional rules created on the fly to address a specific game issue or player concern. Should you wish to develop a situation where no current rule reflects the effects or environment you're after, you only have to address a rules gimmick to cover it, or introduce a rules gimmick. Can't ghost his solicitor. Wow, they totally lost me there. Oh, Lord. A player may wish to create special effects pertaining to the use or effects of die rolls that aren't covered in the basic rules. Gimmicks can be used to add a more simulative detail than is found in the usual complication rules. Any situation where a player wishes to say, if this rule results in X, then Y happens, is possible within Universalis using the rule gimmicks. Other special rules may not involve dice at all, and some may change the way the game is played. But no matter what it is, if a rule isn't already written, the players can write it on the fly as a rules. Yeah, I like that. That's alright. Gimmicks are introduced like any other tenant. Pay 1 coin to define the gimmick, and if no one else challenges it successfully, it's the rule. Players may make suggestions to the rule as part of this challenge negotiations process. This can include modifying the way the rule works, asking if it takes more than 1 coin to use. I thought all of these were just 1 coin. Or limiting its use to just 1 scene. Now that could be quite a good one. I like that. It's not an overarching rule, it's a stage rule, a scene rule. The proposing player is free to refuse or adopt these as desired, depending on how he feels confident about winning the challenge. Over the years, players have invented a large number of rules gimmicks, which can be found on the website. Ram's Head Publishing does not exist. I've included many of the examples in text boxes throughout the rules. Coming on, oh no, I can see it coming. In our ongoing example of play, several diminutive characters were caught in a torrential thunderstorm. It's Albert's term. Okay, we're going back to Albert. So wait, they're paying to introduce boundaries in the game? Misogyny is one thing, but you can't take my Monty Python jokes. Or are they paying if they break the rule? I think they're doing it. I think what they're doing is like you're introducing tenants, but then they're narrowing the tenants down. But I feel like, yeah, the boundary stuff, we would definitely, if we ever played this game, Session 0, Lines First, we do anyway, and it costs us nothing beforehand, and then everyone's first tenant is free, and then anything on that to significantly change the story is what it's like resolve tokens in Good Society. That's the way I sort of see it. I'm not justifying. I mean, it's terrible. I'm also like, what the heck? But let's see what Albert has to say in our ongoing example, right? So Albert says, as a result of the storm, everyone should be soaking wet. So I want to give each of the characters the trait soak to the skin. But I don't want to pay 1 coin a piece for all that, because that's just way too expensive for something that should be a pretty obvious outcome for the storm anyway. So I am going to propose a rules gimmick. Traits describing weather effects can be applied to all characters exposed to the effects for a single coin. 1 coin for a rules gimmick. God. Oh, it's going to get super granular, isn't it? It reminds me of, I don't know if anyone here has read, the Smog, I can't remember what it's called now, but it's the Leyline Press, the Brexit RPG. And that's an interesting one. It has a similar thing where you create your party contract and the rules and how you vote on everything. But eventually you're like, we're just going to skip certain rules. Yes, we're always going to vote to eat at some point. I think the kindest thing we can say is it hasn't aged well. Ed says, I don't know. That seems pretty powerful. You can get a lot of coins worth for effect pretty cheap in that way. Ed is hinting that he might challenge the proposed gimmick. It's like a bloody reality show, this, isn't it? Yes, Dave says, but it makes sense. I mean, it was raining. Now everyone should be wet, right? Dave is voicing support for the gimmick. Oh, Bob, what are you going to say? It needs some more limits. Like, it doesn't apply to characters who have proper protection. Bob is suggesting a modification and hinting that he'll support Ed's challenge if he doesn't get it. Christina, so you mean that for 1 coin, every character can be made soaking wet except for the ones that have a raincoat or an umbrella listed as a trait? Christina is asking for clarification on a suggested modification. Bob says, yeah, or on a hot day, someone could give everyone sunburn except for the ones wearing sunscreen. Ed says, yeah, and the trait should be able to be removed from everyone with a single coin too for when enough time has passed and they've dried off. Ed is suggesting additional modifications to the gimmicks required to win him over. Albert says, sounds good. It will work like that. Albert agrees with the suggestions, modifies his gimmick accordingly, and pays a coin to require everyone to make everyone soak to the skin. Every bracket I read in Marcus Bentley's voice. I definitely see it as like a David Lamb, like, oh my god, we're back in, come dine with me, we're back in Essex, and Shannon has a surprise for the entertainment. Oh, I see. I think the kindest thing is to say it hasn't aged well, so Kaya goes, Monty Python? I mean, some parts, but no, I meant this game. Terrible humour. 10 points for you, Sakaya, on great humour. Is your excellent humour is portrayed by the text-only communication? Absolutely. Anyway, we've got another play example. Christina's starting. She's finished narrating. Okay, so in this another example, Christina has just finished narrating. Oh, was that this? Okay, that's a cutest image, a bit pixelated. Oh, thanks, Dave Hedgecock. Thinking fast, the team of meadow heroes escaped the raging forest fire by clinging to the backs of squirrels. Oh. Sorry. Christina has just finished narrating an exciting scene where the heroes are clinging to the backs of squirrels, racing to escape a forest fire. There are a couple more things she wants to do before closing the scene, but she's run out of coins. Oh no. Albert says, no problem. How many coins do you need, Christina? Oh, about 4 should do it, I think. Albert goes, here you go. Dave says, wait a minute. You can't give coins away like that. It's not in the rules. Okay, here's 1 coin for a rules agreement that says you can loan coins to another player if that player agrees to pay back double next time received coins. Any challenges? Christina, do you agree to that? Great, then here's your 4 coins. Pay me back 8 when you get them. What's this loan shark stuff going on here? Thank God Christina finished though. Yeah, exactly. Oh my word. Oh, this is simultaneously the worst thing, but also brilliant. I don't know about anyone else. It's like, this is a terrible game. What bad examples? More Monopoly vibes, absolutely. Capitalist, the RPG. The greatest story ever told through money. Okay, so chapter 3, scene framing and game flow. Let's see if there's any more play examples. All of the action that takes place in the game occurs within scenes. One player will frame the scene, and all the other players will then have opportunity to participate in it. Players will narrate events, and scenes, and action of the scenes during their turn, and by interrupting the turns of other players. Refreshment. Refreshment occurs immediately following the end of each scene. All players receive a set number of coins from the bank. Oh, get some interest there. It is suggested that the starting groups use 5 coins as a refreshment amount, but each group is encouraged to experiment and find an amount that is most appealing. Rules, gimmicks are great ways to handle this. Following Christina's earlier scene involving the forest fire and the squirrels, where she has used her last 4 coins to narrate the hero's harrowing escape across the river, she declares that the scene is over. She and each of the other players receive 5 points from the bank. Universalis. Very good. Very, very good. Alright, framing scenes. Oh, excuse me. Scenes serve to organize the action of the story into discrete vignettes. Didn't say vinaigrettes as I normally do. A scene is begun by the winner of the closed bid auction and is ended when the player declares it's over. As soon as the scene ends, the players receive their refreshment points. They then bid for the privilege of framing the next scene. Each player, including the player whose turn just ended, makes a closed bid by secretly selecting any number of coins from their wealth and concealing it in their hands. Bids are then revealed simultaneously. Losing bids are withdrawn and the winning bid remains on the table. It is possible for the same player to frame consecutive scenes if they win consecutive bids. I actually would say, no, that can't happen. Because that's not very collaborative. Because someone could just constantly keep, spending all the money. If you don't spend that much in a scene, but you have, the biggest pool, you'll constantly just... No, I don't like that. I think you should always... It always has to be somebody else. They can't bid and... I don't know. They've already won one. They've won one lot. Oh, in the event of a tie, the tied player sitting closest to the left of the player who framed the last scene wins. Oh, what a terrible rule. Just flick a coin. Heads, someone gets it, tails, the other person gets it. That's easier. Rules gimmick. First scene refresh. Oh, Roy Penrod. Oh, Roy Penrod. Who? What did he say? What did he say in the thing? Let me find it. Hang on. Let's go back. He bought this game. Wow, that's the first thing that comes into my mind when I think about Universalis. We don't know what that is. Thank you for creating Universalis. I'm having the time of my gaming life. I can honestly say I've never had more fun gaming than I did tonight. I think that's Bob. Oh god. Okay. So, Roy has contributed the following. So, in the core rules, refreshment occurs at the end of a scene before the next scene begins. This means there's no refreshment before the first scene. Players begin the first scene with whatever coins they have remaining for establishing their tenants. Yeah, okay. With this gimmick, the group can allow a standard refresh before the very first scene of the game to give everyone a few more coins to actually play with. I think, okay, that's a fair rule. It's wow, Fiona. He thinks wow. It's so definitely Bob, absolutely. The variant. So instead of the standard refresh, we set each player's wealth back to its starting value of 25 coins before the start of each scene. This will encourage players to really spend coins to add details to the setting by establishing tenants, since the coins that aren't spent aren't wasted. Okay, I think that's a good rule. I think that's an alright rule to have, to be fair. I agree, because then, yeah, the person that's done the most work in the world building, setting up tenants and stuff, and then they're like, oh god, I don't know. Or maybe when you're setting up tenants, everyone has to spend at least 4 coins, and has an equal say in it, I think. I don't know. It can be helpful, especially with large groups. Like, how many people are you going to put in this? To use a handy prop to signify who the scene framer is. A prop gets passed around to whomever wins the bid and serves as a reminder of who has the authority at the end of the scene. Okay, what do we think of prop? I'm going to say big hat. That's my go. That they have to wear an obnoxious hat, like the biggest one they have, to show how obnoxious this bloody game is. If no one bids, the first player to the left of the last framed player, clockwise, is declared the winner. Oh god, and must then bid at least 1 coin. If this player has no coins, possible that a group has set refreshment to 0, proceed clockwise to the first player that does. Oh fuck that! Yeah, it's fine. Honestly, I have the conch. A top hat. Yes, I do feel a top hat or a monocle of some sort. Just getting into that, the capitalist vibes that's going here. Christina ended a scene with the squirrel riding heroes leaping from branch to branch across the river to safety, and each player received their small refreshment coins. They then bid to see which of them will frame the next scene. Each player secretly selects a number of coins for their bid and holds them out in their hands over the table. Albert's hand is empty. He bids 0 because he doesn't have a good idea for the next scene. Bob bid 4 coins. He has a pretty good idea of what he wants to try. Bob. Christina bids 0 because she doesn't have many coins, just the few she received from the refreshment. And in fact, she still owes Albert 8. Bloody hell. David also bids 4 and Ed bids 3. Oh, so it's between Bob and David. God, I feel poor Christina's been absolutely screwed over by that payback loan. So Bob and Dave are tied for a bid of 4 coins each. Dave is sitting immediately clockwise from Christina, so he wins the tie. Bob and Ed both return their bids to their wealth, and Dave leans out over the table to be spent in the upcoming scene. Right. Oh, leaves his coins out. Christina didn't actually agree to this. Yeah, it kind of just happened in that scenario. Is that good, Christina? Great. No objections. She probably was like, Winning the bids. The player who wins the bid is called the framing player. The winning bid remains in front of them on the table and can be used throughout the scene. Any coins from this bid that are not used before the scene ends are lost to the bank. Ooh. Wait, what? Oh, so that's like... Oh, okay. So, like, you have to use those in the scene, and if you don't, they just go to the bank. So if you, I don't know, bid 4, but then only spent 2 in the scene, the other 2 would go to the bank. Oh. I just assumed they went to the bank anyway, because you've won the right to frame the scene, and then have to pay on top of it as a result. God, I really hate these fictional people. They have the responsibility of framing the next scene of the story. A scene may be any duration, from a brief cut to the action happening elsewhere. It only takes a few minutes of play, to an epic climax that extends over an hour or more, with each player taking turns. Okay, good. I was going to say, God, poor Christina. She's like, and we all get across the river. And Dave goes, right. But then we face the tractors. Everyone roll initiative. The framing player must accomplish 3 tasks. They must establish the location, set the time, and introduce the components. The framing player cannot be interrupted whilst they're performing these tasks, although they can be challenged as usual. I mean, that is interrupting. This immunity ends as soon as the framing player narrates the first event of the scene. So having won the bid for the turn, Dave now sets about framing the new scene. Okay, the scene cuts and now we're in the central throne room of the Sliveran Queen. Oh, right. Oh. Sworn enemy of the Meadow People. This establishes the location and costs 1 coin. The Sliveran are a race of diminutive reptile folk. Oh no, it's come back! Who serve as the principal villains of the story. The Sliveran people and the Queen are created they were created in an early play. We'll just hand wave that around. Dave, it's shortly after our heroes have escaped from the fire, setting the time consecutively to the previous scene and costs nothing. The Queen and 3 of her generals are discussing plans to invade the meadow. Introducing characters from the scene costs 1 coin each. Bloody hell! The Queen is an existing character, so brings with her all existing traits. The generals are new, and they cost 1 coin each to create them in a scene, which gives them nothing but a basic role trait. Currently just generals 1, 2, and 3. See chapter 5. Blah. Oh my god, you have to pay for absolute anything. This is just microtransactions, the RPG. It's the Sliveran Queen J.K. Rowling. I mean, we were all thinking it, weren't we? This makes this game... Yeah, RPGs... Harry Potter came out around about this time, right? The first 2 books? Oh, I think the third book was out by this time. I seem to remember it coming out. So yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well. Tells you how badly this book has aged, and also the taste of the authors at the time. Having these characters discuss their plans is actually an event, which in itself costs a coin. Oh my god, it's so expensive. The defining of the first event ends with the framing part of the scene, and Dave continues with his turn, but now can be interrupted. Ending the scene. Only the framing player can formally end the scene, although they can be challenged to get them to do so. Bloody hell. It is so competitive and combative. They can do this anytime on their turn, except whilst being interrupted, by simply declaring the scene to be over. Following a standard refreshment, the next scene is then bid for as above. Ending the scene costs nothing. Oh, great. Good. Okay. Establishing locations. Establishing or changing locations costs 1 coin. All scenes require a location to occur in. Wait. Does he have to pay? Yeah, he has to pay this bloody thing. Good. I guess when you're bidding for stuff, it always has to be like 3 max, right? Or 3 plus. So you have to have 3 to bring in, like 1 for the location. You don't have to set anything for time, I guess. But if you introduce people, yeah, to introduce components, you've got to, you need to at least, I think, like spend a minimum of 3 coins to like get anything in the scene. That's wild. That's really bad, actually. Because yeah, like if you only spend 1, because you can only pay for 1, then you introduce the location, set where it is, and then that's it. Nothing else happens. It feels like the actual game / story is secondary to the actual PvP of choosing the story. Yeah, I've seen the bidding system done in other things, but it's used in a way like, ooh, can I give you a suggestion? And then you give the coin to the other player. You don't just spend it and it goes to the bank. It goes to the other player. As like here, it's like a GM's intrusion. You get resolve tokens or whatever, and then they can go, oh, no thanks. Yeah. Oh. Alright, where were we? All locations are a type of component that is created by the players and can be assigned traits, as described in chapter 5. Excuse me. Locations can be changed during a scene by a player merely establishing a new location exactly as above on their turn. Changing location is not the same thing as starting a new scene. It is appropriate only when a scene spans across multiple locations, such as during a chase. Characters and components should remain fairly consistent across locations. It is assumed that all components travel to the new location at no additional cost. Oh my god, the logistics of this. Any that do not should be paid to exit. Wait, what? They have to pay to leave? God. Only traits from the current location are available to be drawn upon for dice in the complications. If the change of location is also involves a substantial change in cast, then it's best handled by ending the current scene and beginning a new one. Oh, alright, setting the time. Oh, so yeah, it does cost stuff. So if nothing if it follows immediately from the previous scene. One coin set into the past. One point coin paid to each other player to set it in the future. Wait, what? Oh my god, that's so expensive to set things in the future. My word. Unless stated otherwise, each scene occurs either immediately subsequent to the previous scene, or simultaneously with it, possible if framed at a different location. This is the default and costs nothing. Establishing a time other than that must be paid for. God. There are two ways to frame into the past. First is to frame into the distant past to deal with the events that occurred just before the current game began. These are the easiest past frames to accomplish, as the player must only ensure he does not establish any facts which will violate what has already been known to be fact, unless he decides to do so and risk challenge. Yeah. The second is to frame the scene back to an earlier point in the game itself. This is a much more advanced technique. If you intend to use it with any frequency, you should be certain to maintain your game log very carefully, so you have a timeline of scenes for which the components were present in order to preserve continuity. I don't think no. Okay, obviously, but also. Framing a scene into the future, however, will limit the events of other scenes that will occur before it chronologically. I don't think so. We've got ways to go back into the past, but have yet to be framed. In order to frame a scene into the future, the player must pay one coin to each other player in the game as compensation for limiting their future control in this way. For instance, setting a scene 5 years into the future requires all the characters to be present in the scene. All the characters present in that scene to be alive at that time. This limits the other player's characters to narrate the death of any of those characters before then. Alright, I mean, there might be a reason for it. Maybe they died and came back. During most of these scenes, time progresses at a normal rate into the future. The time of the scene is not normally changed mid-scene. The way location may be changed. Usually, if the game time is to be moved substantially forward or is flashed back to the past, a whole new scene or mini-scene is framed at an appropriate time set. However, since it's not possible to write rules to cover every possible scene the players may wish to invent, this rule can be violated by proposing a rules gimmick and allowing it to be left in. For instance, a time machine component may allow the controlling player to narrate changes at the time of the. My god, so many rule gimmicks would be like, it doesn't cost that much. You know, you get like free, if you win the scene, you get free, you can establish those free things at the top, the location, time, and who's there for free, and then anything else on top of that you could spend for. God. It takes one coin to introduce one component into or exit one component from a scene. Bloody hell. All scenes start as collections of components that are active in it. So location, characters at that location, and any props that are present. The act of adding a component to a scene is called introducing that component. It costs one coin. If the component already exists, i.e. it has been created previously, then the one coin pays for its presence in the scene. If the component has not been created, it is created now with that coin. Creating components and assigning them traits is described in detail later on. Only components that have been introduced in this way are present in the scene. Components that have been eliminated from play using the importance rules cannot be introduced into a scene that's set chronologically after the one in which they were eliminated. Okay. What does it say here? Suspense. Oh, Clinton Nixon. What, did you also give a quote? No, you didn't. Okay. This is another random person who's just giving us a quote. The game itself is more suspenseful than most role-playing games. Most RPGs aren't suspenseful at all for the GM. He knows what's going to happen. Even in a heavily narrativist game, he has some ideas and knows the agendas of the antagonist. Players can read this, by the way. Players can be obvious, or people can be obvious. I've often known what's going to happen in a game before, because I knew what TV shows the GM watched, or the movies he liked, or the books he read. In Universalis, since everyone contributes, no one is for sure what might happen next. This kicks ass. Yes, I guess. Oh dear. Checking. Go away, Duolingo. Can't you see I'm trying to study these books? The player who introduced the concept controls it initially, although components can change hands during the scene. Excuse me. Oh. Quite funny today. Dear. The controlling player, and only the controlling player, can add, remove, or restore traits to the component without originating a complication. Control a component in one scene has no bearings on who controls the component in a subsequent scene. Yes, everyone can have a go at it. Additional characters and props can be introduced at any time throughout the scenes during player turns in the same way, by simply paying a coin. The introducing player will have initial control. Controlled components can similarly be exited from a scene by paying a coin to have them depart. This departure can be for any narrative reason, but it cannot be permanent. Oh, okay. Any exited component is available to be reintroduced at any time unless formally eliminated from play from the rules in Chapter 5. Players can also spend a coin to explicitly state a component as not being in the scene. This may be desirable because another player is free to retroactively place any character not so limited into a scene at a later time. For example, if the events of a scene includes a murder, another scene could later frame a scene at the local police precinct where the character, who wasn't explicitly present in the scene earlier, is claiming to be a witness to the crime. Explicitly paying to not have a character present at the scene of the crime is a fact that could be used to assist in challenging that attempt, or at least challenge it to be true. The character could still lie about having been a witness, but the players would all know that she actually wasn't. Ugh, God, it kind of beats around the bush a little bit, doesn't it? Like, what? Like, I understand what it's trying to do. Like, it's trying to be like, oh, you can do all these things, and you have to pay for it. Like, but again, do we not think all these issues of challenges and stuff could be resolved by having a session 0 and doing lands and fails beforehand? And like it's the GM's compulsions or the intrusions. That's what it's all is describing. Okay, so fade to black. The framing player may choose to pay 1 coin where scene is ending to fade to black. Fade to black prevents the next framing player from extending the scene or returning to it at any point in the future. This may be desirable if the player feels that he has ended the scene in a suitably dramatic fashion and doesn't want another player dragging it out. Like anything else in the game, fade to black can be challenged by another player who feels it is inappropriate. I mean, the fade to black stuff, I've had that in improv scenes where I've done a cracking one-liner, as one does, or a good character and stuff, and I go, great, I don't need to come back anymore. I've done my bit. But then other people go, oh, and then we'll bring back that character several times, more so than the free time rule, and it is so demoralizing because I'm like, it's nice because they want to play with what I've given them, but it means that they've not thought about what they could do and build upon it. It doesn't happen as much anymore, but it used to happen a lot earlier when I started out. Oh, there we go. Yep, still no notification. Alright. Right, cutting back to the same scene. Instead of framing a new scene after winning the bid, the framing player may elect to continue the action of the previous scene, including the scene that just ended, by spending 1 coin to establish the location as that prior scene. In that scene, if that scene was in the past or in the future, additional coins must be used to spend to set the time. Oh my god, it's so expensive. Components that have already been established as being in that location at that time do not require to be introduced. Great. Fantastic. In fact, in this situation, it would require us to exit a component from a scene, otherwise it would have been. In other words, everything and everyone that was there in the prior scene is automatically there for free in the continuing scene. Then, in my case, then I will constantly just set everything in the same location. That's probably the cheapest thing to do. The framing player is considered to introduce all those existing components into the continuing scene and thus gains control over all of them, regardless of who was in control of them during the previous scene. Right, yeah. In this way, scenes can be paused whilst a new scene cuts to the action elsewhere. Then a subsequent scene can be simply played to... Oh, more advice. Oh, that's a... Oh. To simply pay to cut back and pick up the action of the first scene from where it left off, with all the prior components included. What's going on? Oh, well, that's exciting. My copy of Solemn Veil is about to be shipped. Oh, and yep, still gonna be shipped. Exciting. Where was I? Come back with all the private components included. Note: if this technique is often used, the players would be well served to keep a careful record of the scenes and the components that were present. Yeah, okay. Christopher Bradley, did you also do one of these terrible things? No, you didn't. Okay, so again, another folk who has given some advice on scene framing. So, Universalis is currently my favorite game, but I clicked with it unusually well. I played my fair bit with a fair number of people and noticed I seem to come up with scenes much faster and do much meatier scenes than the rest of the players in the group. We asked ourselves why this keeps happening. Did we? I told them what I did. I thought of a climactic future scene that I wanted to see in a story, and I used my power of scene framing to work towards it. They weren't doing that. Instead, they tried to think of where the story goes from here, given what has just happened, rather than think about where they wanted it to go in the future. When they started to think proactively ahead, where the story would like to go, it was like, wow, 1,000% change. It was pretty dramatic. When everyone started bidding for the theme with an idea of where they wanted to take the story, it also became more likely to interrupt, challenge, and originate complications during the theme, which I thought was just great. Hitherto, alright, this is Bob. Who uses hitherto as a word? The players had thought that these were disturbing someone else's play, but now they seem to better understand that everyone's idea for the direction of the story kind of creates a friendly competition. No one's plans had precedence over anyone else's. A great piece of advice from a long-term player of the game. What? A great piece of advice from a long-term player of the game. Oh, is that what it just said? Oh, okay. Weird. The dynamic synergy of each player's different ideas for the direction of the story is what can make the game dramatic, suspenseful, and guaranteed to result in a story that no one player should have thought of on their own. Bob Bradley. Oh my god. But, I mean, to break that down a little bit in terms of an improv thing, it's the same thing we have in improv. Is if we're doing a long form show and you get the suggestions of, it's not like, okay, we need to finish the story. What you should do is like, meanwhile, and go somewhere else completely and do lots of little random scenes that aren't necessarily connected. And then by the end, you'll have a lot of stuff to pull from. And it doesn't matter if you tie all the loose ends up, but you're like, oh, looks like you planned it all this time along, rather than going, okay, we're next going to go to the castle, then we're going to go get the princess, then we're going to do that. Like, that's not how you find a story. It's not like you should keep continuing that. And yeah, like I like, yeah, where will the story go from here? It's like, no. Where do you want to go? What do you want to go? I think that's pretty darn good. Oh, right. How are we doing on time? Okay, we've got about 20 minutes left. Let's see if we can get to the end of chapter 3 at least. Hooray. Hey, maybe we'll get another play example. So, player turn. So all scenes have a all scenes have a formal beginning and formal end. In between, there will be many player turns as they take their actions and interrupt each other to narrate some element of the story. The framing player essentially has the first turn, which begins as soon as the scene is framed. When the player does not want or cannot afford to do anything further with their turn, and play continues to the next player in a clockwise order. Note that ending one's turn is not the same as ending the scene. Oh, okay. I see. People can have multiple turns in a scene, but there's a framing player. Right, so it still goes around. Okay. Kind of like the story spine. Going, once upon a time, there was a woman that lived in a shoe. So I've spent the location. I've introduced the woman in the shoe. And then I might be like, I'm going to pass the play on. And then someone else can go around and do that. And then I can be like, and they all lived happily ever after the end of the scene. Okay. Interruption. A player can interrupt another player by spending 1 coin to do so. Play passes to the interrupting player and proceeds clockwise from there when he is done, unless he is also interrupted. These rules provide a good deal of structure as to whose turn it is and what they get to do on their turn. However, in practice, players will find turns evolve into a very free-form fashion. You know what? They probably would do if you didn't have the coins element. A player may spend some time narrating a scene until a second player interrupts. That player then just adds a single event and then the turn ends. Oh, so you can only interrupt twice. I see. Interesting. The next player that begins his turn. Turn, they end their turn. I see. The next player that begins his turn until he's interrupted by a fourth, who begins narrating his ideas until the first player interrupts him, starts a competition. Wait. Whoa, what? Hang on. So, a player may spend some time narrating a scene until a second player interrupts. That player just adds a single event and then ends his turn. So I guess, okay, is this just a play example? The next player begins his turn until interrupted by a fourth player, so the fourth, okay, who begins narrating his ideas until the first player interrupts him to start a complication. Right. Okay, it's just going for an example of how the flow works. Okay. In other words, a player's turn is not sacrosanct. Whilst a player has the power to author and direct the story in any way he sees fit during his turn is always subjected to interruptions by other players seeking to do the same thing. In this way, suspense is maintained because no player can actually really be sure what's about to happen or why. Interrupt priority. Oh no, it's going to be like some Magic the Gathering stack rubbish, isn't it? In the event that multiple interruptions at the same time, precedence is given to the player sitting closest to the interrupted player's left. This precedence even trumps players who have clearly declared the interruption first. Oh, that's rubbish. The purpose of this rule is to prevent interruptions from becoming a speed contest to see who can interrupt first. Regardless of who's first, the player closest to the current player's left always gets priority. I mean, I guess? The player being interrupted can complete whatever immediate narration he was doing, absolutely, so he can't be stopped mid-sentence, but cannot continue with his turn beyond the immediate course of action. He is, of course, free to spend a coin to interrupt and make his turn right back. The only times a player cannot interrupt are when they have won the bid for the turn, or are engaged in framing the scene, or whilst they're narrating the resolution of a complication using bonus coins. Okay. It's literally just saying the same thing here again. Again, I understand what they've done it so that it kind of stands out to us, but it's not good, is it? Yeah. Here we go. Oh, we've got another example, guys. So Dave has continued to narrate a scene in the Queen's throne room when he is interrupted by Ed. I'm interrupting you for 1 coin. Dave finishes his last thought, but can spend no further coins. As the planning continues, a scout rushes into the throne room and dismounts to give his report. This costs 1 coin to create the scout as a new character with the role trait of scout. Note, this would have been the same if Ed was introducing an existing scout character into the scene. Ed could also pay a coin to add a trait like mounted to the scout. Some groups may also want to pay 1 group for a specific action to scout after dismounting. Oh my god. But for most groups, will tend to treat this as colour. Absolutely. Ed says, "My queen," he says, "the fire was set as per your orders. However, I regret to inform you that we believe the meadow spies managed to escape across the river. This costs 1 coin for the event of having the scout deliver his report to the queen, and 1 coin for the fact about the fire having been set by the Silverans. Yeah. There are a couple of things to note here. Firstly, during Christina's forest fire scene, she never established the origins of the fire. Ed has interrupted the scene to establish that the fire was intentionally set by the evil Silverans, who will stop at nothing to kill the meadow. Bloody hell, poor Christina, who didn't want reptiles in her game. To say that you're going to refresh 5 coins per scene, the game assumes folks are going to be spending freely. Yeah, I know. Second, since Ed now controls the scout and Dave still controls the queen, see the section on control, Ed and Dave can speak to each other in the voices of those characters using the dialogue rules. Good grief. Alright, mini scene. So when you take a turn during a scene, you may temporarily change the scene in order to describe events happening elsewhere. Ordinarily, especially if this other scene is set to be an elaborate one, you should wait for the current scene to end and then bid enough to win the next scene and describe the events then. However, sometimes the desired scene is too small to be worth bidding many coins for on to ensure winning the bid. and sometimes the information you want to convey will just lose its impact if not conveyed immediately. When this is the case, you may make use of a mini-scene. A mini-scene must be framed exactly as described above for any other scene. This includes immunity from interruptions during the actual framing. Is there a problem? Have people been interrupted a long time while people do monologues before? Feels like it. You must establish location, set time, often either concurrently with the main scene or in the past in the flashback, and introduce components. The mini scene must be ended when your turn ends, either by ending it yourself or going through interruption. And there's no refreshment received for this. Unless the player paid a coin to fade to black, however, the mini scene can be picked up again and continued after either as another mini scene or a regular full scene after bidding. Okay. I mean, that feels completely no. Like, I feel you're doing mini scenes. Like, we cut away and we see the fire outside, like, burning and people running from it. And then we cut back. You should only have to pay 1 coin for that, I feel, as an interruption. You'd pay it to the person that you're interrupting as well. The framing versus taking a turn. So when you're framing a new scene, so after winning the bid, you establish the location, set the time, and introduce components. You are immune to interruption whilst you do this. When you are taking a turn during an existing scene, you do not have these things. Any given scene can consist of multiple turns as the player passes around the table or jumps between players due to interruptions. A new scene is not framed until the framing player ends the current scene and the players bid for the privilege of framing a new one. So I guess that prop of, like, the hat showing that that's the framing player makes sense here. Because especially if it could take 2 hours and it's like, I think it's time to end this scene somehow. And we've all taken lots of turns. Anyway, don't worry, guys. Albert is talking. So back in the throne room, Ed has ended his turn following the scout's report. So play continues with Albert. Albert says, "Okay, I am declaring a mini scene. Flashback to the point of origin of the forest fire. This scene is playing in the background as the scout delivers his report. There's 1 coin for the location where the fire began, and 1 coin for setting the scene in the past. The visualization on how the scene should be played if this was an actual movie is pure color that makes things more interesting but has no cost. Present are a team of Sliverans. 1 coin for creating a team of Sliverans as a component, plus 2 more to represent their number as a group trait." Oh, okay. I was going to say, there's 5 of them, so that's 1 coin for each of them. Lord. And Jarek, Sparrow Rider, 1 coin for introducing Jarek. Interesting. God. Jarek. What a name. Jarek is an existing character who has the trait, the fact that he was exiled by the Metal People years ago. He also has a trait of possess the Sparrow Fright, which he rides. This allows a Sparrow, which has been defined as a separate component, to be introduced into the scene automatically for free. Albert says, Jarek observes the Sliverans starting the fire and trails them as their scouts follow the fleeing Meadow People heroes. 1 coin for the event that Jarek observes the activity, 1 for introducing scouts, 1 for to follow them. Oh my god! The flight of the heroes has always been described in Christina's earlier scene. Poor old Christina. That's the end of my turn. Albert ends his turn. He managed to tie in the roguish character Jarek to the events of the story of the scene. Perhaps in another scene, one of the players will describe Jarek flying to give aid to the heroes, potentially earning redemptions for his past as yet unspecified crimes. Good grief. That's this image. There's some pirates and stuff. That's quite cool. Challenges and fines. The challenges are ways for players to police. Don't like that word. No. Other players in the game. Challenges can occur for any reason. Anything a player says or does in the game can be challenged. This can include player behaviors that are not directly game rule related but are deemed inappropriate. What? We have safety tools for that. There are 2 phases to a challenge: the negotiation and bidding. In the negotiation phase, if the players can reach an agreeable accord, the player can continue virtually uninterrupted. Only if an accord cannot be reached does that bidding contest come. Okay, fine. A player normally uses challenges on another player's turn to oppose or suggest changes to what the other player is doing. Roy's back, guys! Roy's back. Mini interruptions. That's, well, Roy, what have you got to say, Roy, or should I say Bob Penrod? In the core rules, if a player wants to add a trait to a component when it's not their turn, they must 1. Spend a coin to interrupt, 2. Spend a point to take control of the desired component, and 3. Spend coins to add the desired traits, after which the turn progresses to the player on the left, not the player that interrupted. Good grief. This works extremely well as a rule to keep a tightly regimented and organized formal turn structure, but can be rather expensive and cumbersome when someone just gets a great idea for a trait and they want to get it in play. Yeah, that's fucking wild. As the group gains experience with the rules, they often find that the extra organization isn't always necessary or desired, and often the first gimmicks a play group will go with will involve loosening the turn structure. This gimmick allows a player to temporarily interrupt another player for free, temporarily take control of a component for free, in order to spend coins to add the desired traits. Once the traits have been added, control reverts to the previous controlling player, and the turn returns to the player who was interrupted, unlike a full interruption. At any time in this process, this player who interrupts doesn't like the traits being added can cancel the mini interruption and force the other player to use the formal interrupt and control rules. Combining this with the friendly control gimmick and the free dialogue gimmick really loosens the turn structure up, but it also leads to a greater anarchy for players who aren't ready for it. No. Like, I feel like once you've established like a location and a place, and you're bringing it back, you don't need to pay for it. I feel like you've already established it. Why do we need to constantly keep paying for it? Why do we have to have monthly subscription for things when you've already paid the download and installation fee? Anyway, the negotiation. God, we'll get to the end of the chapter, so help me God. A challenge is a way for players to police other players in a game. This can be done with a formal declaration of a challenge, or be as simple as, hey, wait, that doesn't make too much sense. Challenges can also be used to offer suggestions for a different approach that the challenger would like better. Such as, hey, that's great, but I think it would work better if Jack had just stared him down coldly rather than brawl like that. Yeah, hey, do that a different way. It's called a fucking safety tool. If the acting player alters their play in a manner acceptable to the challenger, then the challenger ends and the acting player continues their turn. Or, if the acting player can convince the challenger that their way is better, then the challenger can drop the challenge. In this way, all players can take interest and collaborate in a scene, and they can rein in players who are straying from the social contract or desired game mood, etc. in a non-destructive manner. The challenge player only pays for the final result of the negotiation. Any coins spent on statements that were withdrawn are recovered. In an earlier scene, the party of meadow heroes had been crossing a pond in a makeshift canoe made out of a curled dried leaf and a couple of twigs when Bob originated a complication involving a snapping turtle. Bob, come on! Bob won the dice roll and used his bonus coins to narrate the turtle overturning the boat and then snapping one of the characters, Turk Rains, in half and devouring him. Bob, what's wrong with you? Is the divorce really that bad? Ugh. By spending coins equal to Turk's importance to eliminate him, as explained in Chapter 5. Ed says, wait a minute, I like Turk. He's a pretty cool character. Besides, he's Special Forces operative, and his team needs him to get to the Slytherin nest. Bob says, it's okay to have characters die. Besides, he has a silly name and deserves to get eaten. That's what happens when a complication die rolls big. You have to build a bigger dice pool if you didn't want to lose. Here, Bob is suggesting that Ed is so worried about characters dying that he should have fought harder to win the complication with the snapping turtle. Sound advice that Ed would do well to remember. Fuck off! I don't want to play with Bob. Get fucked. Ed says, how about this? The turtle snaps at Turk, but given his trait of split-second reflexes, he manages to jam his XR-27 Hyperblast rifle, that's the sci-fi stuff coming in here, another trait, into the turtle's jaw, barely escaping. Since play is not currently a complication, Turk's reflex does not have any direct mechanical impact here, but Ed is using them to justify how Turk manages to avoid death last minute. If he can convince the other players that such a narrow fate is more dramatic than just being eaten, and in keeping with the character, he might get Bob to back down. What is this game? Bob says, okay, But the turtle snaps a rifle in half, and Turk has to cross that trait off as a sheet. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. That totally makes sense. But also, you've incredibly cruelly just like taken Turk reins off. It is removed as per the rules in Chapter 5. Since Bob and Ed have come to an accord, the cost of the complication resolution is calculated to account for Ed's suggested events. Bob pays the requisite coins for the new outcome instead of his original suggestion, and game continues normally. Bob's just cruel. I'm just like, where does that come from? Oh my god, I'm just checking because I'm aware we've got like 9 minutes left. I can see the using facts and challenges. Alright, we're gonna never gonna get to the end of this chapter, I don't think, unfortunately. I want to check. There's fines, we get fines for things as well. There's a Monty Python joke there. A Monty Python violation, I call for a fine. Okay, 42. We're on 37. Okay, we'll try and get to the end of this. We'll try to get to the end of this chapter. So bidding. If an acting player refuses to make any changes and a challenger wishes to insist, then the negotiation has failed and the bidding begins. Bidding is a process by which all players in the game get to rule on the outcome of the challenge by spending coins to support whichever player they desire. Bidding begins with the challenger who must bid at least one coin. If they're not immediately willing to do so, then the challenger immediately ends and the acting player continues their turn. The bidding process then progresses clockwise with the exception that the player who's been challenged goes last. Each player in turn bids one or more coins in favour of either the challenger or the challenged, or they pass. Alternatively, a player could bid at least one coin to start a different solution of their own. Oh my god. Giving the other players a new option to bid. The bidding continues in this manner until no player wishes to add any further coins. The coins are then counted and the side with the most support wins. Ties go to the player being challenged, or if the ties are between two challengers, the option that was started first. God, so many bloody rules. If the challenged player wins, they do not have to change the challenged item. The item is immune from further challenges and they continue their turn. That makes sense. If the challenger wins, then whatever statements were challenged do not take effect, and then the acting player gets all the coins back. They must then be used to pay for whatever the winning challenger's version of the statements, if any. If the winning version could cost more coins than the acting player has spent, the winning challenger must take up the difference out of their challenge bid for their own wealth. If they cannot, then whatever is not paid for does not happen. Ooh. The acting player continues with their turn. And all the coins bid from any side go to the bank. Oof, brutal. Mike Holmes, an actual writer, is giving some advice here. So, in the core rules, all coins bid in a challenge are considered spent and returned to the bank regardless of who wins. This rule in play counter the puffing strategy common in auction games, where a player doesn't really want to win bids bids up the price for another player who does. However, some groups have found that since you can stand to lose both the challenge and a sizable amount of coins, you may be less likely to back down. This could lead to some unnecessary bidding wars once both parties have had too much invested to afford to lose. With this gimmick, you are allowed one party to concede and recover their bid, making them more likely to back out than fight to the bitter end. Variant. As a compromise solution, allow those who withdraw from a challenge to recover one half of their bid. Okay. Suppose Bob's not willing to accept Ed's suggestion. No way. Turk's buying it. Okay, I guess I'll have to challenge that one coin. And from here it goes around the table. Doesn't matter to me either way. I'm not spending anything. Christine, I don't like the idea of a main character dying so early. Ed's solution sounds more exciting enough to me, so I bid one coin for Ed. Bob as the challenge party gets to go last. Dave says, silly name, eh? I named Turk. I don't think it's such a silly name. One coin for Ed. Bob now sees 3 coins arrayed against him. If he had a lot of extra coins, he bids 4 and see how far the others are willing to go. He really wants Turk dead. He's got a fucking chip on his shoulder, that's all. But he doesn't have that many coins, and it's hard to overcome 3 other players in a challenge by himself, so he resigns, planning to try and kill off Turk again later. Get lost, mate. Honestly. Ed's version of events wins out, and the resolution cost is recalculated. Bob recovers the coins he spent from overcoming Turk's importance in order to kill him, and instead uses as many coins as necessary to narrate the scene and with the escape and the broken rifle instead. Then Bob continues his turn with free bitcoins are paid to the bank. Using facts and challenges. Every trait and every event in the game also serves as a fact. A fact is defined as any piece of information that a player has established in the game and has paid for with a coin. That last is important. If a coin wasn't spent on it, it is not considered to be a fact. The term fact cannot be used interchangeably with trait or event or tenant in many cases, as all three of these involved a player making a statement and paying a coin. In game terms, the effect of a fact is to give additional leverage during challenges. If an established fact is being contradicted by any coins spent in defense of that fact, i.e., opposing the contradiction, are doubled for the purpose of determining the winner of the challenge, thereby making the violation more expensive. This is intentionally not the same thing as saying a fact cannot be violated. Reality and stories are rife with examples where things were believed to be true until discovered otherwise, or two different groups fanatically believe contradictory truths. Therefore, a fact is only absolutely true until 1. Someone pays for a different fact that contradicts it, and 2. No one successfully challenges that contradiction. For example, a different kind of example here. Naomi may have been established as Sebastian's daughter, but sometime later a player tries to frame a scene revealing that she's actually Drake's daughter. Someone challenges this statement, and the challenge is made with the weight of the original fact behind it. But if no one does, a new fact takes place. Ooh, so it overwrites it. Okay. Note that the new fact does not always replace the old fact, of course. Although it likely does in the above example. Instead, the instant of a violation which can be described as an exception to the fact otherwise remains in place rather than being repealed entirely. For instance, take the fact that nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. If someone then narrates a discovery that permits faster than light travel, it doesn't necessarily eliminate the original fact. Instead, the fact could be modified to become nothing can travel faster than the speed of light except the pan-galactic high-perform transducer drive. Oh, what? Not pan-galactic gargle blaster drink. Oh. This leaves the original fact largely in place to challenge other contenders. When determining a fact is replaced or modified occurred across a challenge as a part of the conditions of the challenge. Determining whether a fact is replaced or modified occurs during a challenge as part of the conditions of the challenge. Often, a player who is willing to accept a modification rather than insist on total replacement may find that they can avoid a full challenge altogether. Any player that can attempt to bring a fact into play during a challenge, there can be any doubt to its applicability. A majority vote of players can determine it. If a player does not agree with the decision, the outcome of the vote itself can be challenged. Oh my grief! Okay. Ooh, I can hear my stomach. That's quite sad. If the challenge involves a fact that is being contradicted, coins spent in defense of that fact count double. Ooh. The fact that is being challenged cannot be used to defend itself. Yeah. If there's any doubt that a fact applies, majority vote carries. If the vote ties, the fact is considered to apply. Back during the forest fire scene, before the heroes managed to escape on the backs of squirrels, Dave took a turn where he narrated several things. Bloody Dave. One of the things was that Marissa Torno, one of the characters, was being caught by the flames and severely burnt. Good grief! Christina challenged the narrative by pointing out that Marissa's traits of flame retardant jumpsuit. If Dave had pressed the issue and tried to burn away Marissa anyway, any coins spent opposing him would have had their value doubled because of the majority of players ruled that the suit constituted a fact protecting Marissa from fire. Ed entered the negotiations and suggested that a fair compromise would be a rules gimmick requiring Dave to pay double the coins for whatever the effects he wanted the burns to have, since the suit was only flame retardant, not flame proof. Oh. and so would not give complete protection. I think Sakai said it best: mansplaining the RPG. Ultimately, Dave avoided going to bidding by instead narrating Marissa being surrounded by flame, but thanks to the suit, emerged singed but unharmed. Alright, and then we've got this final one here. Yeah, alright. Fines. Instead of or following a challenge, a player can ask a fine to be levied. Fines should be reserved for egregious behaviours or abuses that are chronic and have not been solved through negotiation and are detracting from the enjoyment of others. The amount of the fine can will be generally fairly trivial. Oh, that's not the point of the fine. To stop people doing stuff. The point of the fine is not to punish, but to gauge the sentiment of the other players. The player who finds the other players united in levying a fine has been formally requested to alter their behaviour. Again, lines and veils, safety tools. If a fine is requested, both sides state their case, and then all players vote thumbs up, yes, it should be levied, or thumbs down, no fine is necessary. If the number of thumbs up is higher, then the accused pays coins equal to the thumbs up to the bank for his undesirable behaviour. If the number of thumbs is down is higher, then the accuser pays coins equal to the thumbs down to the bank for unnecessarily asking for a fine. Wait, you get punished for calling out someone's bad behaviour? If the thumbs are tied, there is no fine levied against each party. That's pretty fucking bad. In an earlier scene, Albert has described an aviary where the meadow people kept swallows to use as mounts. And Dave says, "What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?" And Ed goes, "Monty Python violation! I call for a fine!" 4 thumbs immediately go up from the players. Dave sheepishly acknowledges his faux pas by putting his own thumb up as well and pays 5 coins to the bank. Alright, and then we're done. Chapter 4, narrative. Right, we don't have to do any more, guys. We've come to the end of this. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, let's do a quick review of this game, shall we? Good grief. Right. What do we think of this game, Universalis, the game of unlimited stories? Don't forget, we had production quality is high. Nice artwork, good dark print. I got the feeling from now my train of thought will run something like this. Ooh, that's cool. I should have designed a game around it. Wait, why would I do that when I can just use Universalis? I want you to know I received it yesterday. It's mind-boggling. Money well spent in a hobby, that is not always the case. A game about currency. I got to play Universalis, which was major kick-ass. If you don't own a copy, you better get one right the hell now. Fiona, this was the worst. But also the best. Kudos for sticking with it. Like, right. Okay. Let's try and let's critique this. Okay. Bearing in mind that this system is 20 years old. I personally do like secret bidding in games. I think that's it's always exciting in board games. This game has literally microtransactions for doing anything, and so many granular rules that you will absolutely never get this right. I can understand why people would not want to play this game as a result. We have games now that talk about player tokens, that you use a token to do a move, or do player intrusions. Good Society has a good rules about like how do we use resolve tokens, and I want to suggest this, and you keep the coins as a result. The money doesn't go to the bank, you keep them, and it goes around like that, and rewards you for taking on troubles to your character. Here, it costs so much to set up a scene, and to introduce it, and to go back to the past and forward, and like all the issues I think absolutely would have been solved with Session 0, get any of those contract issues out of the way, and the lines and veils, and the open door policy. I think you shouldn't have to pay for anything that's already been established. I think everyone gets one free thing in the tenants thing, for sure. Like, I like the idea. I think Bob wrote those reviews. The play examples were dreadful. It made me feel like, when sometimes you're like, are you being trolled a little bit? I think they might have actually come from like an actual play session, which isn't great, I must say. The idea of having rule gimmicks to cover certain things, I get that, yeah, absolutely. So I do think, like, underneath everything, there is a system which could be interesting, where you are challenging each other to be like, oh, I don't want that, but like, as it's just generic basic game. But then if we took out quite a lot of this, there's nothing exciting about it currently. Like we've only managed to get through 40 pages of this book, 42 pages of this book, right? So I just feel like it must have been like revolutionary to have that idea of like spending coin to determine what the story is. But yeah, it doesn't feel like anyone's consent is really up there at all. The fine stuff, get rid of that. We don't need to find it. We don't need to find people. If someone's done some really bad behavior, that's when you go, we're going to pause the game and look back at our safety tools. We do not need to raise fines for it. And certainly if you've got egregious behavior, I'm accused, I want a fine, and then nobody votes for it, then you get fined for disrupting a play. No, absolutely. If the rule book hasn't interested or excited you in 40 pages, it's failed. Absolutely. I mean, it made me laugh. I don't normally read out those play examples, but I couldn't believe how bad those play examples were. That made me laugh. If any, it's also like, I will say it was easy to read aloud. Often when I read through games, it's wow. It took a while to explain everything. It was a bit dense in places, which kind of annoyed me. It's very basic in terms of like what it looks like. So again, can read stuff. There's no alt text, obviously. Formatting wise, again, it makes me think of like if you were writing your own game, that you'd have like the concepts in bold and maybe as a bullet point list. You'd have the play examples in a box, etc. Also, better play examples, you know. So, I mean, what did we miss? What did we not look at? Narrating the scenes we didn't do, creating components. That might have had some interesting things, and complication based. I mean, I can roughly get an idea about what that could be. But also, I would definitely have like, if I was making this game better, I definitely would have like random tables examples for like what appropriate tenets could be, or suggestions for stuff like, oh, sci-fi, roll a d10. I don't even know what the d10s were used for. We didn't even get to that point. I think that was something. I think that's for the components, I guess. I don't know, or the control. Anyway, so I don't recommend you buy this game at all. And it's on Indie Revolution Press website, which is also not the greatest website in the world. But if you enjoyed it, you can go and the links in the chat. I don't recommend it. I will not be going back to it. I like certain ideas about it, which I can now see in other games, but not for me. Not for me. And that's that. Great. Oh God, Bob. Anyway, thank you so much for those people. I hope people have had a bit of a laugh reading through this game with me. I very much appreciate it. I had a good laugh myself. If people want to find out more about what I'm up to, check out What Am I Rolling, which is a twice monthly tabletop RPG one-shot podcast. As always, it's going very well. We've got lots of interviews coming out. What I need to do today is do some more recording for the world building, because I did a little bit last night. I'm gonna name my Coriolis character Bob. Well, Bob is the most popular name that characters get named on D&D Beyond. That for the second year in a row, when they did this survey about like what's the most popular character name, it is Bob, which is hilarious. What was I gonna say? I've completely forgot. Yeah. So if you like the stuff like this, again, we've done lots of actual plays in the past. We've done lots of interviews, and I've been doing some world building, getting some more actual play stuff happening, which is exciting. Other things, if you're like Fiona, what you wrote, what you spoke about today, is this where world building recording. Yes, that is exactly it. It's quite a mouthful as well there. What else was I going to say? It was yeah, I was just putting it in the chat, didn't I? If you're like Fiona, what you read today was rubbish, and other RPGs you've read are rubbish, I only want us to play one. It's like, well, okay, this is the 50th year. Check out the DM's Book Club, where we talk about D&D in a weekly book club podcast, and discuss what we like, what we don't like about it, and what we could improve. Because the lore is quite interesting, really, when you look at it, and you can put it into any story and use any system, and change it for what you want to call it. So we read the books, so you don't have to. What else is there? I don't think there's anything else off the top of my head. Oh, I do have scheduled another one of these tabletop RPG, too long tabletop RPGs streams to read through. Tomorrow, we've got Hollows tomorrow. The problem is, I might shift it to Saturday just because I don't know what time all my worldly possessions are arriving. They're either arriving very late today or first thing tomorrow morning. So I'm gonna Hollows. That was weird. My camera just clicked quite weirdly. So I might move it to Saturday just to give me a space to do it, because I also got recording in the afternoon tomorrow as well. So I might switch it. I'll let people know though, because I'm keen to look at Hollows as well. Very excited for that. And then next week we have. Just going to look at the other events I put out. We've got Land of Eam on Tuesday. I really like that Land of Eam. That'll be fun. Solitaire by Yeon Shim, which is a collection of little games, which will be that'll be quite different, because then we can look for different games, like Reflect First. And then the D Sanctum on Friday as well. Won UK Game Expo award last year, I think. And then we've got some other ones listed up there. If you have any suggestions for things to read through, do let me know. Either comment on this video, like and subscribe, obviously, Or you can, there you go, I thought about it, come to our Discord. The Discord of where and the Imps Book Club, but also just a way to chat out. Come and chat and hang out. Chat out was what I was thinking. And always taking up suggestions stuff, and you probably see more notifications. I'm getting better at like going, hey, we're going to do a stream. But I wish I could automate it more. Thank you. Ooh, I smacked myself in the face there. Thank you so much for checking out this pod, joining me in the stream. I very much appreciate it. I'm going to go now and go do a quick playtest or something. I've got loads of stuff to do, but much love. Enjoy games. Don't be like Bob. Be more like Christina. Chat later, friend. Oh yes, chat later too. All right. Much love, guys. I was going to find the bottom end of the stream. I'm going to wave like this, like a balloon, and mwah. Bye.